Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we take your sources and find the fascinating insights hidden within. Today, we're diving into a truly wild story about a monk, a robe, and, well, a sequence of events that underscores a profound truth.
Absolutely. It's all drawn from a text concerning a monk named Tissattheravatthu.
It's quite a narrative, isn't it? Uses some surprising twists to illustrate a core teaching about where real danger lies.
It really does. And not just in big, obvious actions, but, in the subtle movements of the mind. Our mission today is basically to follow this unexpected journey and unpack the powerful lesson it holds about attachment.
Okay, let's jump right in. We've got this narrative account. It's from the commentaries, and it gives us the context for a specific teaching the Buddha gave.
Right.
And the story starts with the Buddha in Jetavana, that's in Savatthi. He's about to deliver a teaching, and he kicks it off with this very evocative phrase, just as rust arises from iron.
Mm-hmm. A powerful image to start with.
And the source makes it clear this teaching, this metaphor, it's prompted by something that happened involving this monk, Tissattheravatthu.
So the monk's experience is the living example, you could say. It's the reason the Buddha chose that particular metaphor at that time. It grounds the whole thing.
It really does. Grounds the abstract teaching in a very specific human, and as we'll see, maybe not entirely human reality later on.
Uh-huh. We'll definitely get to that part.
Right. So first, who was Tissattheravatthu? The sources tell us he was, a respectable young man from Savatthi.
Okay, standard background.
Yeah, he became a monk, got ordained, and was known by that name, Tissattheravatthu. Sounds like a devout person just starting their spiritual path.
A seemingly straightforward beginning for someone dedicating their life like that.
And then enters the robe. The sources explain that after spending the rainy season retreat, the Vasa, in a rural monastery, Tissattheravatthu received a robe.
A necessary item for a monk.
Yes, and it's described, quite plainly, a coarse cloth 8 spans in size. Nothing fancy at all.
Just functional. Function over form, a typical monastic requisite.
Exactly. So after the rainy season, he takes this plain 8-span robe, brings it back, and places it into the hands of his sister.
Okay, a simple gesture. Maybe thoughtful, giving her something, or maybe just storing it.
Hard to say the initial motive, but then here's where it gets really interesting. The story takes its first unexpected turn. His sister looks at this coarse cloth, this basic robe, and her immediate thought is, this is not suitable for my brother.
Ah, okay. So she felt it wasn't good enough for him, maybe saw potential, or just felt her brother deserved better.
Seems like it. Her affection really comes through in what she does next. She doesn't just, buy him a new one. She takes this original cloth and puts in an incredible amount of effort to transform it.
Wow, okay.
The source details this meticulous process. She gets a sharp knife, cuts it into small and large strips. She pounds it in a mortar, probably to soften it.
Right, breaking down the coarse fibers.
Then she straightens and loosens the threads, rolls them up, and spins fine thread from that original coarse material.
That's amazing dedication. She's basically remanufacturing the raw material.
Totally. And then she has a new cloth woven using this refined thread. And this new one, it's not only fine in texture, but also larger 9 spans instead of 8.
Remarkable. She invested so much time, skill, and labor, really elevating this simple item out of love for her brother. She completely reshaped the original gift.
So now Tissattheravatthu comes back. He's getting ready to actually make his robe, arranging thread and needles, bringing in younger monks and novices to help with the sewing. It's like a communal project.
Mm-hmm. That's common.
He goes to his sister and asks for that robe.
Expecting the original coarse 8-span cloth he left with her.
Precisely. And she, quite proudly, presents him with the results of all her labor, the fine 9-span cloth.
The product of her care and skill, a significant upgrade.
He takes it, he looks at it, and his reaction, it's quite striking. He says, my robe was coarse in 8 spans. This is fine in 9 spans.
Okay.
Then he says, this is not my robe. It belongs to you. I have no use for this. Give me that one.
Whoa. He rejects it. Because it's not the exact same object.
Yeah. He seems to be clinging to the idea of the initial item, the specific thing he gave her. He can't immediately accept this transformed gift, even though it's clearly better and made with good intentions.
It's quite a reaction. Fixated on the original form.
His sister insists, this is yours, venerable sir. Please take it. But he still refuses.
Stubborn.
It's only when she explains everything she did, the whole detailed process, cutting, pounding, spinning, weaving, emphasizing it was all for him, out of care for him.
So explaining the intention and the effort behind it.
Exactly. Only then does he finally accept it. The recognition of her work and her intention allows him to let go of his attachment to the idea of the original robe.
Okay, so he gets past that initial rejection. That's good.
So he takes his beautiful, fine 9-span robe back to the monastery. The communal sewing project begins.
With the help of the younger monks and novices he gathered.
Right. And his sister continues to support the whole thing, providing gruel, rice, other food for everyone helping out. Very supportive.
A real community effort, fueled by her generosity, too.
On the day the robe is finally finished, she makes an extra special offering of food. It's all done.
A project completed. Should be a satisfying moment.
And here's where the story takes its sudden, really dramatic, and deeply surprising turn. Tissattheravatthu looks at the completed robe.
Yeah.
The source says affection arises in him for it. Or, maybe more pointedly, attachment. The Pali word is sine.
Ah, okay. Attachment to the robe itself.
Yes. And he has this simple thought, tomorrow I will wear it.
Seems innocent enough, right?
Yeah.
Looking forward to using this thing that took so much effort.
You'd think so, but that very night, he dies.
What? Just like that.
Just like that. The source notes it was due to indigestion from the food he'd eaten earlier. Maybe the special offering was a bit too rich.
Wow. An abrupt end. Right on the cusp of fulfilling that simple desire to wear the new robe.
And the outcome of his death. This is the really shocking part. The source tells us after he dies, he is immediately reborn.
Where?
As a louse, a tiny insect.
No, you're kidding.
Not kidding. Reborn as a louse, right there, in that very same robe he felt attachment to.
Oh my goodness. From a respected monk to a louse. Instantly. Bound to the object of his final clinging thought. That's incredibly stark.
It really underscores the immediate, powerful effect of the mind's state at the very moment of death, doesn't it?
Absolutely. So what happens next? The louse is in the robe.
Well, his sister hears of his death. She's devastated, naturally, crying, grieving with the monks. The monks perform the funeral rites for Tissattheravatthu's body.
Standard procedure.
And since Tissattheravatthu didn't have a designated attendant monk to inherit his things, the robe, according to the monastic rules, now belongs to the sangha, the community.
Right, it becomes communal property.
So they decided it should be divided among them. Fair enough.
Makes sense, according to the Vinaya, the monastic code.
But as the monks prepare to actually take the robe to divide it, the louse, who, remember, as Tissattheravatthu cries out.
The louse cries out. How?
Well, the source reveals its thought, its mental state. It thinks these people are plundering what belongs to me.
Ah, that possessive thought again. Still clinging.
Exactly. And it frantically runs back and forth on the robe, totally distressed by the perceived loss of its possession. Even as a louse, that attachment is strong.
Wow. That powerful clinging thought is now animating this tiny creature. It shows the continuation of that mental habit, that attachment.
Now, this is where the Buddha comes in. He's sitting in his perfume chamber, meditating.
Okay.
And he hears the louse's desperate sound, its mental cry, perhaps with his divine ear. That's his special ability to perceive subtle sounds, even thoughts sometimes across distances.
Incredible. So he's aware of this tiny drama unfolding with the robe and the louse.
Instantly aware. And he immediately instructs his attendant, Ananda, to go tell the monks not to divide Tissattheravatthu's robe.
He stops them.
Yes. Tells them to wait. Specifically, wait for 7 days.
7 days. That's very specific. A mysterious command pausing the normal monastic procedure. He must perceive something they don't.
Exactly. The monks obey, of course. But you can imagine they're probably wondering why. So why the 7-day delay? The source explains it.
Okay, I need to know this.
After 7 days pass, the louse dies.
Ah, its lifespan runs out. Lice don't live very long, right?
Apparently, 7 days is about their lifespan, according to the commentary. So it comes to its natural end as an insect.
Okay.
And here's another surprising detail from the source. After its death as a louse, it is reborn in the Tussita realm.
Tussita, that's a heavenly realm, a diva world.
Yes, a high, fortunate rebirth.
What a turnaround from monk to louse to a diva in Tussita heaven. That's quite a trajectory. Again, highlighting the power of rebirth and maybe the effects of past merit kicking back in.
Seems plausible. So on the 8th day, the louse having died and been reborn well, the Buddha tells the monks, okay, you can now divide and take the robe.
And the monks must be buzzing, right? Discussing why the delay.
Totally. They're gathered, talking among themselves, wondering what that was all about. The Buddha arrives, asks what they're discussing, and when they tell him, he reveals the whole hidden drama.
He unveils the invisible consequences, the reason for the wait.
Yes, he explains. Tissattheravatthu was reborn as that louse in the robe because of his final attachment. And then he reveals the chilling consequence that was avoided by that 7-day delay.
What would have happened?
He says if the monks had taken and divided the robe while the louse was alive, that louse, Tissattheravatthu, feeling his possession was being taken, would have felt intense anger and hatred towards the monks.
Ah, a state of aversion and anger right at the moment of death.
Exactly, and a mind corrupted by that powerful anger at the moment of death that would have led him to be reborn in hell.
Whoa. So the delay wasn't just arbitrary. It was an act of compassion. It prevented a much worse rebirth, a state of intense suffering, all because of the louse's potential angry reaction fueled by its attachment.
Precisely. The Buddha's intervention allowed the louse to live out its short natural lifespan without generating that potent negative karma of anger towards the Sangha.
And so, instead of hell, it could be reborn into Tissa heaven. Amazing.
Because the robe division was delayed, the louse died naturally after its 7 days, presumably without that specific trigger of intense anger over losing the robe, and was reborn in a higher realm.
Incredible. The subtlety of karma, the importance of the state of mind at death, and the Buddha's incredible perception and compassion.
When the monks hear this whole sequence, this incredible story behind the waiting period, they remark, "Indeed, Venerable Sir, this craving, it's heavy, it's serious business."
And that really brings it home, doesn't it? It leads us to ask, what is it about craving, even for something seemingly simple like a nice robe, that makes it so heavy, so potentially dangerous?
The Buddha agrees with their assessment, and then he delivers the central teaching, circling back to that metaphor he started with. Remember, just as rust arises from iron.
Right, the rust metaphor.
He says, just as rust mala in Pali arises from iron, from ayato, and then eats away at that very iron, consumes it, destroys it, makes it useless.
It's a process of internal decay. The destruction comes from the thing itself.
Exactly, and he applies it directly. In the same way, craving tanha arises within beings, within us, and it causes our ruin. It leads us down, leads us to be reborn in lower realms, like the hell realm Tissattheravatthu narrowly avoided.
It's not an external punishment, but an internal process.
And then he speaks the verse that summarizes it all. Just as rust arising from iron, having arisen from that, consumes that very iron, so too the deeds of one who overindulges attaining lead them to a bad destination.
That metaphor is so powerful because it shows the destructive force isn't something outside attacking us. It's born from within, like rust from iron, and it consumes our potential for happiness, for peace, for higher rebirths.
And the source commentary gives us some really crucial insight into that key term in the verse, attaining. It's translated here as one who overindulges, or maybe one who exceeds wisdom in contemplating requisites.
Okay, what does that mean, exceeding wisdom?
Well, the commentary explains dona refers specifically to the wisdom of contemplating the 4 requisites, food, clothing, dwelling, medicine, only for their proper practical purpose.
Ah, seeing them for what they are functionally.
Right. So clothing is for protection from heat and cold, from insects, for modesty. It's not for vanity or status, or, crucially here, for forming deep emotional bonds with the fabric itself. Food is for sustaining the body, not just sensual pleasure.
It's about using things mindfully, right? Engaging with the world clearly, seeing things for what they are and how they serve a basic function, rather than getting swept up in desire or aversion, or using them to build up our sense of me and mine.
Exactly. So an attaining is someone whose actions, their kamani, go beyond this wise, mindful contemplation when they use these basic things. They get attached. They crave beyond the simple need. They define themselves or their happiness through these objects.
Like Tissattheravatthu's affection, his seneho, for the robe, thinking, tomorrow I will wear it. That possessiveness, that anticipation beyond simple function.
Precisely. And the verse says the actions stemming from that state of mind, actions that arise from themselves, from their own internal craving and lack of wise reflection, those actions lead them to dagati, a difficult place, a bad destination.
So the consequences aren't arbitrary punishment from outside. They're the natural inbuilt result of actions driven by a mind entangled in craving and unwise attachment. The rust of craving just consumes from within.
A really sobering thought, and the source concludes by noting the impact this whole explanation had. At the end of the Buddhist teaching, after hearing the story and the verse in the explanation,
Yes.
many of the people listening attained significant spiritual stages, like stream entry. They really got it. They understood the danger, even in subtle attachments, and saw the path forward more clearly.
That's a testament to how clearly the Buddha could illuminate these subtle, powerful forces that shape our lives, our future, and how understanding this, really seeing it, can be such a catalyst for profound realization.
What an incredible circuitous journey this story takes us on. I mean, starting with a sister's love transforming a coarse robe,
Right, this act of devotion.
leading to a monk's fleeting moment of affection, just a thought, really, that triggers a sudden death and this shocking rebirth as a louse, desperately clinging to its possession.
And then the Buddha's divine intervention, that compassionate pause.
Yeah, that 7-day delay that completely changes the next rebirth, averting hell and allowing for a heavenly one instead.
And it all culminates in that crystal clear teaching, craving, that internal rust, consumes us from within and determines our destination.
It really underscores how even a seemingly small thought, a flicker of attachment at a critical moment, can have truly staggering consequences.
It absolutely does. So this leaves us, and you listening, with a pretty compelling question, I think.
Which is,
How aware are you of the subtle attachments in your own life? Not just to big possessions, maybe, but perhaps to ideas, to outcomes you want, or even just pleasant experiences you cling to.
good question. And how can cultivating that kind of mindful contemplation, the commentary talks about seeing things for their true purpose, their function, how can that help us navigate our own journey, maybe avoid generating our own internal rust?
Something for you to consider.
Indeed. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive.